right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Type1lifting podcast. I have a great guest. She is a coach, podcaster, and content creator, Claire Bays. How you doing?
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. Shout out to Xander for connecting us.
Yeah, he's Mr. Connector. So he and like
Yes, yes.
him and Victor from the Touch and Go gang have
Yep.
connected me to everybody, which is insane. It's like the amount of people that they know. It's I'm like
Yeah.
I don't know. It's crazy.
Well, and once you get further into the community, like at large, the more you realize how tight knit it actually is.
Hmm.
It's a really cool thing for I don't know how much you relate to this, but definitely for someone who's spectated from afar for so many years to now be so much more involved in CrossFit and it's been really cool over the last couple of years to get to know everyone and be like, wow, this thing is actually really small and these people are doing incredible things and I admire the heck out of them, but they are people,
Yes,
just like
true,
everybody
true.
else.
Yeah. So I knew you we did talk earlier. So you do know a little bit about diabetes. So how does diabetes come into your life?
Yeah. So on my father's side of the family, diabetes is certainly a type 1 and 2 situation. And so my father's mother was type 1 and my dad has both 1 and 2, I think is the appropriate way to put it. He certainly just neglected it heavily
Hmm.
and for his entire adult life and and he was morbidly obese and so he has he's had open heart surgery. He's had a number of different surgeries. He is now insulin dependent. He just neglected his health really, really for a long time. And as
Hmm.
a result, is now living a quality of life that is a result of that, which is really unfortunate. So, my father's diabetic. My sister which she's amazing and wonderful, and she's been on a wellness journey, and it's so cool. But she's been impacted by obesity specifically for her whole life. I think she was maybe 5 years old by the time that she was morbidly obese, and
Wow.
so it's something that I grew up around. And so, of course, have known friends that are type 1, and had my grandmother that's type 1, which are different things, but definitely aware of how much diabetes yeah, I mean, the friends that I had that had to regularly check their levels, I mean, it changes the game. So thankfully, I do not struggle with diabetes and was able to recognize that that type 2 that was modeled for me was something I desperately wanted to fight back against and
Yep.
have just done a lot of work to not allow that to be my journey.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you were from Oklahoma
Yeah.
and now you moved to Austin, Texas. So
Mhm.
I've been there before. I was actually stationed for my 2 week annual tour at San Antonio, and we did like a little tour to Austin. And of course, like, where would you go? Like Sixth Street, whatever. It's Sixth Street, so it's like you just
Yes.
go right down that strip, and it was cool. And then I saw the Lance Armstrong's bike shop too, because I was a huge Lance Armstrong guy.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
we just had South by Southwest and he was here doing all sorts of events for that.
oh, very cool, very cool. So,
Mm.
um, being from a very small town to Austin, so what was your whole thought process of like even going there?
Oh, this story it's very deep in CrossFit, so this ties well.
Okay.
I was not looking to move out of Oklahoma at all. I was plenty happy there, and I say that I was. So I was in real estate for a number of years. I was a
Hmm.
real estate agent, and that was a comfy, cozy job for me. I had the opportunity. I was well networked in Oklahoma. I grew up in a small town, Shawnee, Oklahoma, and then about 45 minutes from there is downtown Oklahoma City, and 25 minutes from that is Norman, which is where I
Hmm.
lived, which is where Oklahoma University is. So anyway, as far as like it was the most city feel you were going to get in Oklahoma. And so I was well networked there, moved there as an adult and lived there doing real estate for a number of years, was able to say, oh, well, I make a good living here and it's cheap to live here and the people are really nice.
Hmm.
And so I just stayed. And I actually didn't move to Austin until the week of my 30th birthday.
Okay.
And so, yeah, and that was last year. So, I mean, I grew up in Oklahoma and the moving to Austin was because of my relationship with Wit Fitness. I went to work for Wit Fitness and which they're based in the UK. And so they were working on an operation in the US
Hmm.
and heavily involved in the CrossFit space. And the founder of that company, Dan Williams, he and I are still good friends. But so I did a road show for them last year, and I had originally, I think that the CrossFit Games 2021 was the first time I worked for that company. Just at the games, it was totally on a whim, and got to meet them and kind of grew that relationship. And next thing you know, I'm shutting down my business and moving to a new state. And then they just had some internal changes. They had a lot of changes occur within the company. And as a result, I was not retained. And so I plopped in Austin and did not have a job. And
Nice.
so it was a very interesting transition. It was scary, but it was so obvious immediately that like it was in alignment. Like this
Mhm.
place is such a mecca for wellness. And so although it was scary and I didn't know what my next move was, I had accumulated a handful of certifications for coaching, and just had the wonderful luxury of doing a lot of networking on behalf of brands and things, so that when I got here, I had a good network set up to just kind of launch in and figure it out. So I've been here
Nice.
less than a year.
Wow, that's impressive. Yeah. So obviously, like, you being at that small town, like some people like stay and become like townies. Was your
Yeah.
thought ever to like, am I going to be one of those townies, like, living in Oklahoma the whole time?
Yeah. I It's a good question. I definitely knew that like I was eager to get out of the town that I grew up in.
Hmm.
And I still know people that live there to this day that I think highly of. So it's not a knock at individuals,
Oh
but I
yeah, yeah, yeah,
definitely was like, but I was just like an angsty kid. Like
yeah.
I did not play sports growing up. I did not there like the structure there was none, right? And so I like moved out of my parents' home when I was 17 and went to work as a let's see here. First step was at IHOP actually. And anyway, so um I knew I wasn't going to stay in my hometown, but I went to Norman, which was like for Oklahoma, like that was big. And,
Yeah.
and yet again, I kind of fell in there and had such a good network. Like I knew everybody in the town. And so it
Hmm.
was easy for me to just kind of get comfy cozy there. And so, yeah, I don't know. I knew I was going to not be in my hometown, but to be honest, I didn't anticipate living somewhere like Austin, or I certainly never had ambition of like, I'm sure we'll get into some of the like personal brand building stuff. And like, none of that was ever an aspiration until it was just like, oh, shoot. Okay. Wow. This is an opportunity. Maybe we do this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
So, with me, I'm like kind of a creature of habit. So I kind of like, if I do the same thing and it works, I just kind of stick with it. And so, like,
Okay.
I always thought I was going to stay in Massachusetts, like always. But then I met my wife and we moved up to New Hampshire, and I was like shitting my pants, like moving up to New Hampshire, and I'm like, okay, it's not that bad. And then like the huge jump was like, okay, my wife got a job down in Georgia, and so I'm sitting here like, do I go with her or do I just stay here? Like,
What are the ages of these? Like, what is the age that you
uh,
first move out of Massachusetts? And then what age were you when you went to Georgia?
so I moved right when I turned 30, I moved to New Hampshire. And so from like
Okay.
30 to 34, we stayed in New Hampshire, but I was like working in Massachusetts the whole time. So it's kind of like it wasn't that bad. And then all of a sudden, like when I turned like 34 that summer, my wife and I and my 3-month-old son drove down to Georgia with our dog too. And so that was like right before I turned like 35 and became a diabetic. And so I was so nervous because I had this like old Ford 500, this like jalopy of a car, and I'm like just like I prayed before we left our house in New Hampshire because I didn't think my car was gonna make it.
Mm.
So I prayed. I was like, okay, let's have a safe trip, with the dog and the whole family. And it was a big step, but I'm glad I did because I do not miss the winters whatsoever.
So did you have a job set up when like no, that was a terrifying time in your life.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh. And you said you 34 when you did that?
Yeah.
I think that's so cool to just speak to individuals, because I mean, like, it's just so relatable for so many people where you get up into your 30s and you're like, I'm supposed to like have it figured out. And then you look
No,
around and it's like,
yeah,
yeah, literally no one does.
I still don't. I'm 43 and I still don't sometimes. But it was crazy because like, and then all of a sudden I moved down there and I finally landed a job at a hospital, and then I became a diabetic, and so that was like another traumatizing thing. And I'm just like sitting in the car driving home, and I'm like, okay, what do I do? What do I
Yeah.
do? And just kind of rolled with the punches and went with it. So
Oh my gosh, and the diabetes, I mean, that's you're type 1, and so what would you I know I'm flipping this back on you, and I'm sorry, but I'm curious, like,
It's okay. It's okay.
what are the big impacts that I'm sure you could actually answer that at much more length, but, like, the biggest changes that occurred in your own lifestyle as soon as you recognized that you were diabetic?
Diet first thing, because I chocolate chip cookies were like my go-to on Sundays. I would eat those like all the time, and now it's like just almost non-existent now. And
Yeah.
then so when I became a type 1 diabetic, I lost like 23 pounds in like a couple weeks. And because I was just like going to the bathroom like five times a night, and then
Mhm.
peeing all through the day, and just like drinking like a large amount of like fluids. Like, oh, I thought drinking OJ would be great because it just like kill the, you know, the being parched, and it actually made it like 10 times worse because of the sugar.
Yeah,
And
gosh.
so yeah, it was
And you work
insane.
with children who have diabetes, which is so cool because the children, I mean, like even adults, like you're an adult who got, and like, and you work in a medical profession. So you even
Mhm.
had a good understanding of what was going on and it still caused you problems. I certainly know of, friends growing up or like with kids. I mean, even adults, they don't know and they're going to make mistakes, but like kids, they really have no clue
Yeah.
and they just want to participate, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And you got also got to figure out their hormones are also another factor into their diabetes, because once like the hormones start kicking in, then diabetes, like the blood sugar starts like spiking and you can't bring it down, and it's just like it's just like you're literally thinking of numbers 24/7. And
Mm,
I literally have a piece of equipment like on my stomach, and it's
yeah.
connected to my phone, and I just like literally look at the numbers every single time. And then like you'll see that you'll have times where like you're up to like the 250s or 270s, and you're going up, and you take insulin and it's like still going up, and you're like, all right, and then you take more, then it's still going up, and then it like kind of flatlines, and you're just like, it's stressful sometimes. It's so
Hmm.
stressful.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's I mean, what is so since this is like your thing, I mean, what are the numbers of individuals, say, like, within the US perhaps, living with type 1 diabetes?
I know. So I know. The last time I checked the data on this, so 60% of type 1 new onset diabetics are over 30.
Okay.
And so typically, like everyone says, like, oh, you're like you didn't get it as a kid and stuff like that. Like, no, it happens. Sometimes it happens like later on in life. And
Mhm,
so, and then like the 40% is like all like under the age of like 30 or whatever. I don't
mhm.
know how many diabetics are worldwide. I mean, I know it's like, I think it's like 0.05 of the whole population of the world. So it's like a
Which still
very,
a load of people.
yeah, yeah, true, true. But like
Yeah.
it's weird because like the diabetes community is it's almost like CrossFit. Think of it as a CrossFit community, where like if someone has a question on diabetes, or like if someone is like needing help finding something, like there's so many people that can give you the opportunity to kind of, lead you in the right direction. Like
Mhm,
I had this girl, she was a diabetic when I just started out. I had like the Freestyle Libre, that big like disc that goes on the back of the arm, and
mhm,
it was a 120-point gap from when I pricked my finger and checked my blood through that and the Libre. And so I asked this girl from South Africa, I'm like, hey, have you seen this before? And so she literally posted it on our stories, and literally like 20 or 25 people responded to me saying, hey,
mhm.
this happens like all the time. So it's like a
Interesting.
15-minute delay. But yeah, everyone's like super, super helpful with one another. So
Yeah, that's good. I mean, that's awesome. It's not entirely surprising. Like you share this thing that
mhm.
makes you, very unique and it's scary. It's like you said, the idea of living off of these numbers, knowing that if I tip too far this direction, I'm in actual trouble. Like
Yep.
that's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been times I've woken up at like 400, like middle of the night with like 400 plus, like for my blood sugar, and I'm sitting there like,
Yeah.
the hell happened?
Right.
And so,
Yeah, trying to figure it out. Yep. I can certainly my dad definitely has I mean currently he
hmm
has sick days regularly
hmm
and I've been present for when they onset before and I'm just like that looks extremely uncomfortable.
yeah,
Like it looks miserable and he just he knows the things that work for him to deal with the situation and get it to calm back down but it's just rough, and his is unique in the sense of the fact that it is type 2. Although I say it's unique, and actually there's loads of type 2 diabetics out there, right?
Yeah.
But you know that's something he has to deal with now. I mean, there's no going back from it now. And I remember a story years ago that I like to, and this is funny. We'll do this. Okay. So so my dad, I grew up eating these like cobblers and these like cast iron, and I've posted video before of me mimicking how he made them. And so if people are watching this video, they'll be able to see I'll like do it. But anyway, his way of making it is he lines the thing with the crust, and then he puts in the apples or the blackberries or whatever it is. And then he takes the bag of granulated white sugar, the big bag, and just holds it over his like sternum belly and just shakes I mean, his whole body's moving with it until everything is completely covered. And then like whole sticks of butter and just layers it until it's done. Anyway, this is what I grew up with. I grew
Mhm.
up loving this dish. I don't know any better. I'm a child being fed sugar. I'm happy.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so anyway, after he was now insulin dependent and underwent the open heart surgery is really where things changed. Anyway, he could no longer consume sugar in the ways that he used to. So one year for Thanksgiving, he tried to make a sugar-free variation of one of those.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And this man got his first bite. No one else had had any yet. And he takes one bite, throws his fork onto the plate or spoon or whatever, shoves his plate forward, like shoves himself out from the kitchen table or the dining room table. It's like Thanksgiving. He goes and picks up the entire cast iron from the dessert table, because yes, we have a dessert table still to this day, and I enjoy it at
Yeah.
like doses that are a lot more okay for me to like have a good relationship with food.
Mhm.
Anyway, he goes and picks up the whole thing, goes out the back door and flings it off the porch into the yard. And like, we're like, what if anyone else enjoyed that? Also, now we have to go get this dish out of the yard. And he's just like, no one else is going to like it. It's trash. And I'm like, okay, dad. Anyway, I hope that whoever heard that got a kick out of it. I loved
That's a good
it.
story. That's a really good story because like it's funny because like when I switched to like sugar free and like all that stuff, it was just like
Mm,
the first little while it was just like the taste was so bad, but then
yeah.
like you get used to it. It's just like
Mm,
whatever, just roll with the
yeah.
punches.
Well, and there are more options available
Oh
today.
yeah,
And I think
yeah,
that one of the things I'm sure that you have to deal with the sugar-free thing is like, what is the substitution of the sugar? And is it one that's actually also harmful, or is this one okay? Because okay is available and harmful is available.
yes, true, true. Yeah,
And
it's
so,
crazy.
sorry.
Like it's crazy what kind of chemicals are in some of the foods we eat. It's insane.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that goes for whether you can have sugar or not. Yeah.
Yeah. So you said you worked at IHOP for a little
Yeah.
while. So um obviously you said you were like I listened to the first ever podcast you'd had
Yeah.
right today. And so cuz I was like I just want to make sure I got like all the notes and everything like that. So and like you were eating like fry foods and all that stuff,
Mhm.
and was that like a bad time for you for like with like food wise, or kind of how was that situation?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up on fried chicken.
Mhm.
And so we didn't know the term protein. I mean, we didn't know what a macronutrient was, what's a calorie. I mean, that vocabulary did not exist in my household. And we ate every meal out, and we ate dessert every dinner and typically at lunch as well. And so, I grew up on Little Debbie's. I grew up on all of it and had no awareness of the dangers of that
Mhm.
diet. And to be honest, I mean, my parents' generation, this stuff all started to exist when they were coming up, so they didn't have the awareness that they now have about food. So anyway, I grew up like that. And then I'm 18 years old and I get out of high school, and I just start to gain weight. And so I had always been like, even though I didn't play sports or anything, I was always pretty active. And so when I started to gain weight, I want to say maybe within the first 6 months after graduating from high school, I believe I put on like 15 pounds of,
Mhm.
just fat. And so I recognized the trend was occurring what felt like rapidly, and that I didn't want to do it.
Mhm.
There were things as simple but noticeable as like my mobility. So yeah, 18-year-old Claire was not using the term mobility, okay? But I do know that when I'm laying down in bed and I'm curling up into a ball, my stomach is touching my legs now earlier than it ever has before, right?
Mhm.
Things like that that made me uncomfortable. I'm also a woman and everyone cares what they look like. I think, for them, like we all want to look good, right? But
Yeah.
that was another thing for me was I want to I want to feel like when I walk in the room, like I'm proud of who walked in the room, and
Yeah.
I'm not feeling that way anymore. And so I've got to do something about this. And so nutrition was the first entry point, and then the fitness stuff came later. And then it was a journey. And so then I developed cute little eating disorders, and I say cute little ones, it's very rough. But binge eating and bulimia and orthorexia and all that fun stuff. And just kind of navigated my way through that for most of my 20s.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
my sister actually, my middle sister, so I have 3 younger sisters, and so the middle one had an eating disorder because her Irish step dancing coach told her that she was too fat and she needed to lose weight, and so that just triggered it. So she wouldn't eat and she'd be like passing out like in school and stuff like that, and she just wouldn't eat, period. And so kind of seeing like what she had to deal with and stuff like that, and then we had to bring her to like a group home to kind of like, you know, rehabilitate her back to like, eating normal and stuff like that. And she still has episodes some once in a while, but like just seeing my parents and like how much like, what they went through and even me too, just kind of seeing like, what she's going through and how tough it was for us to see the way she was like. So it was that kind of like what your parents were thinking too.
Yeah, I mean, I think in hindsight, they have a lot of emotions tied to my sister's morbid obesity growing up. And so she is not anymore, but she still has to, all this stuff that you don't just like, it's gone. I mean,
Hmm.
all of this stuff that was built in. So for your sister, it was a coach telling her that she was overweight when she wasn't or whatever. And there are so many, I coach actually clients with nutrition a lot today. And so often I get women that were told by their coaches or whatever growing up that they were thanks to the BMI scale, all of these things that are untrue, and they
Yeah.
couldn't compete unless they were under this number of pounds on the scale. And so all of these ideas that are just so broken. But I think that one of the things we have to like really look at, and so this is even for a diabetic person, is like, for me, I recognize that my relationship with alcohol was really not serving me. And so I had the opportunity to say, and I did not know that I was capable of this at that time, but have learned that I am and that anyone is with the right tools could close that door.
Hmm.
I could say, okay, you know what? Me and alcohol, we interact differently and I make messes. And so I don't have to ever drink again. I don't have to ever drink alcohol again. And so that requires me to have a recovery program and things like that. But I have that option. Food, we don't get to run away. Like for the rest of our lives, we have to eat food to live. And so to try to continue wherever you are in your journey with it, to find a way to have a relationship with food that you can actually enjoy the experience because it's meant to be enjoyed. And
Hmm.
instead it's just been so bogged down with misinformation and all sorts of, diet culture and whatever that just really makes it really hard for people to not just have this really messy relationship with food, which is so sad. But I mean,
Yeah.
I get it. I know you because I am you, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, there's another kind of eating disorder a little bit too. So with diabetics, it's I've seen it firsthand. So, what people would do is they would like eat sugary drinks or like drink like just eat like just absolute garbage and not take insulin. And so what they would do is their blood sugar would be so high that they would literally pee everything out to lose weight that way. And so there was like one kid, he was like 21 or something like that, 20 or 21. And like he was like a heavy set kid, became a type 1 diabetic and realized that he can get high blood sugar and just like lose the weight that way through like, going to the bathroom and stuff like that. And so, and I was like, hey man, like what's your deal? Like what are you doing? And he's like, well, I haven't been feeling good, so I haven't taken my insulin. And I'm like, dude, you gotta stop because I know what you're doing. And
Yeah.
so he's like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, I know you were overweight before and you're trying to lose weight and this is the way to do it, but if you keep this up, your kidneys are going to fail, you're going to lose your feet, you're going to like have no legs and like God knows what else could happen to you." So,
That's terrifying. And that last bit that you said is what people need to know, you know?
yeah.
I mean, if that trend actually exists, that it's possible that And can you blame the kid for thinking he found an out to lose some weight when he wanted to lose some weight? You know, like, his reasoning for why he was taking the action checked out, but he just all these repercussions means that, like, no, you literally can't do that because all of the repercussions are really bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and so the education around that.
Mhm, and he like, his mom would say, yeah, he literally had a whole bottle of Mountain Dew, like, the day before, and I was like, "What?" And
Wow.
so that's why how he would, like, lose weight. He lost, like, I think it was, like, 120 pounds by the time he started coming in on a day-to-day basis because he was in DKA, like, all the time.
Yeah, and DKA will kill you quick.
Mhm. Yep, real
Yeah,
quick, real quick.
that's
So,
scary.
if anybody doesn't know what DKA is, means diabetic ketoacidosis,
I could
so
have said that.
okay, well, yeah, I should have asked you. It'd been a
No,
qui
no,
like
no.
a quiz show, so what is DKA? No,
Diabetic ketoacidosis. I only
yeah,
know that because my father has hung out there before.
oof, I knock on wood, that's never happened to me, so I thank goodness, but yeah, like, even, like, I I don't think diabetics can go keto either because they can from, like, the ketones that they pee out, so I don't think we're even allowed to do that either. So,
Yeah,
don't quote me on that, but I don't do keto, I don't really care for keto, but I don't think we're not allowed to do that.
interesting. Yeah, I certainly am not going to speak to that in any capacity. I can say that I have a lot of friends that have done it, and it seems like men enjoy it okay, and women seem to hate it. Is like a consistent theme I see with people who do it, but I
Mhm.
have never tried keto and certainly do not know if it works for diabetics or not, like if they are even able to.
Yeah, but, you originally before, you owned a nutrition store, like,
I did.
really, really young, so, I mean, you're quite the entrepreneur, which was, like, it's very kinda scary to kinda see because, like, when I was your age doing that kinda stuff, like, there was no way I'd be able to do
Mhm.
that. So, kind of, what made you get into, like, owning your own nutrition store?
Well, okay, I'm wild, like, I'm crazy. So, what you'll notice through my journey professionally is, I make a decision and then boom, she's gone.
Yep.
And
That's
and so
like my wife, yeah.
which can make us fun and can also just Jesus, woof, get along for the ride. Hope you
Mhm.
brought your seatbelts. So, with the nutrition store, that was that first journey. So, I'm working at IHOP. I'm 18 years old. And I find a shake shop and I discover that they tell me drink 2 shakes a day, eat a meal, you're going to lose weight. I do that. I do that rapidly. I feel great. I'm skinnier than I've ever been. This works. So then I quite literally convince a friend of mine to drop out of college and put together a business plan and start going to banks and get a local bank to loan us money and then open a nutritional supplement store. I don't know, 6 months later.
Wow.
Mhm, yeah. So I had that story, and what's actually so cool about this, I will say though, is that she has continued in that. Like she's still in my hometown, happily, like married, kids,
Mhm.
has the store. She's moved locations. She has multiple now. Her life is like beautiful, and
Killing
so
it, yeah.
yeah, and she's aware of that. You've got to figure out how to live this lifestyle thing, and so
Mhm.
anyway, I'm like really grateful for it for her. But sure enough, 1 year into that, we signed a 1 year partnership agreement, and uh, anyway, after 1 year, I was like, yeah, I'd like to leave, and part of that was because I was not like I was really feeling like a phony,
Mhm.
and as in I went to the classes to understand sufficiently to be able to speak about what the products did for you. I could do that. But I did not yet have, so like I had the head knowledge, but the ability to practically apply to myself, I had not yet figured out. I was literally in year one.
Mhm.
And so I left largely because I either did 2 shakes a day and a meal and was in a severe caloric deficit, or I was in a caloric surplus. There was no in between. I did
Mhm.
not know what that in between looked like, and it took many years of trying to figure that out. So anyway, yeah, I did do that at age 18, literally.
That's crazy, that's crazy. So, when did CrossFit come about for you?
2000, let's see here. I started to watch CrossFit stuff in like oh 09, 10, like Annie days, like
Okay,
early Annie days. Yeah.
okay.
I just managed to catch, I mean, like at my parents' home, some sort of like documentary stuff about Annie and early games and
Hmm.
something with her over in Iceland. And it was all just like, that's so cool. That's so crazy. So I actually started paying attention to the sport many years before I started attending a CrossFit gym. And in 2016 is whenever I started to go to a CrossFit affiliate. And that was the same song and dance as you see throughout my life of seeing these people that have a quality of life that I want and not understanding
Yep.
anything about it, but knowing I
Yeah.
want it. And then so I joined that CrossFit gym as a way to try to be like them. Like they were fit, and I wanted to be fit. And so I was scared. I actually attempted to join that gym in 2013, lasted a few weeks, maybe twice a week. I would drive around the block and drive home. And then yeah, I couldn't do it. Like it was so intimidating. They were athletes and they belonged there is how I
Yeah.
saw it.
Hmm.
And I had never played a sport, didn't know how to do an air squat. And so I just felt such like I have no idea what I'm doing here. I'm going to get hurt. This is scary, whatever. And then a few years later, I went back and was like, no, you can do this. And then I spent the next few years being really bad at CrossFit, but I kept showing up.
Yeah. So were you drinking the Kool-Aid like the second time around, like immediately?
I like to say like it was slow and steady for me actually. I think
Okay.
for the
Okay.
first year I was also a bartender bar manager by this time. So
Hmm.
my like I'm living separate lives in a way, And so I would go 3 days a week for the first year ish. And I like the social aspect and things like that, but I knew I was bad at it. And I thought I'd always be bad at it. It wasn't until 2020 when things shifted for me in my brain of you could actually be good at this if
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
would
Yeah. Yeah.
apply yourself and believe in yourself. But anyway, so 4 days a week the next year, so on. So I like to say I like started out with like a sip here or there, and then maybe like 4 years in, I'm fully bathed in the Kool-Aid. Like I'm in. So yeah, it
Okay.
was a
Very cool.
slow journey, but
Yeah.
we've been baptized.
Yeah. And so what made you become a coach?
The coaching bit of it was literally just I wanted the education,
Okay.
is how it all
Okay.
started. And I refused coaching many times over. Um, so I like owe Bryce an apology, my coach from back home, which I love him. He's awesome, wonderful, amazing coach. Anyway, because he was like, yeah, but just because other people want to do this doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. I'm like, yeah, but I got enough other stuff going on, and I don't know.
Hmm.
So I actually got 3 certifications, L1, L2, and then a CDP coaches development course, which is something that he does, which is actually wonderful, 12-week, super in depth. It's great. Anyway, did those before ever actually beginning coaching at all. And then Whit is who shoved me in the coaching because we had to go to all these gyms and do all of this coaching. So next thing I'm doing running classes in 2 to 4 facilities a day.
Wow. And like how many people
Yeah.
would come into those facilities?
We went to it was pretty wild. The road show was, and so it varied greatly. You would run classes of 10 and you would run classes of 60.
That's crazy. Like I was a group fitness instructor for a while too, and like there was one time we had this like really small room. It was like a studio kind of like gym, and we literally had 25 people, and like there was no room for 25 people in this place, and it's like kind of like so crazy like to think like okay, you got to think of the fly like okay, you guys got to go out in the hallway, all right, run steps or just do all this stuff, and like it's so hard even for like one person to watch like 12 people, let alone like 60 people. So how did you kind of like not get too stressed out and like manage each situation?
Listen, if you figure that out, you let me know. No, well, there were things. There were 3 of us on the road show. So Gus,
Okay.
who has wonderful coaching experience, Hannah, who also holds an L1 or 2, and she was a gymnast. And so there were 3 of us. And so I held an L2 and had plenty of head knowledge. And honestly, that like I said, that CDP was very in depth and we built out programming. It was wonderful. So there were 3 of us. So that made it a lot more digestible of okay, we can do this, we're doing this together.
Yeah.
And but then yes, it was run and gun, and it was you run into the facility, you assess the situation, what's the design of the room, what are we gonna, and then you just go with it. And so it was such good experience. I mean, I'm so grateful for that opportunity. It felt disorienting, but I'm really grateful that they did put me in that role and give me that opportunity because now I can go coach at these different events and do all this stuff and figure it out on the fly. And as much as I do like to be prepared, you can, in any space move people through fitness safely if you know, just have the right tools.
Yeah. So how
So
does you have a very bright personality from like what I've seen on your like social media podcasts and
thank
all
you.
that stuff, and like it was like, you're very out there. So how does like that your personality kind of go over to coaching group classes? Does it like how do you promote yourself like through, coaching?
Yeah. Well, I think we have to address the fact that I'm new here. So that's part of it. Like it is March 2023 and I did not even start coaching really until like a year ago.
Yeah.
So I'm still really new with that, but I mean, I think I had a lot of grooming in the best, like, I'm not kidding when I say Bryce is, I mean, really worked us over with that course of and I was also just coached by his coaches and by him for
Hmm.
so many years that so much of what I choose to do is largely inspired by receiving such high caliber coaching for so many years.
Yep.
And so from there, yeah, I infuse my own personality and my own little quips and whatever, but now I also have stepped outside of that and chosen to get other certifications that have just given me different information that I now implement, such as the pain free performance specialist certification, which it's all over the U.S. and it's an incredible experience. Anybody who gets the opportunity to take that should take that. It's
Hmm.
so good. But anyway, yeah. So I mean, I don't know with the coaching. I don't even know the answer because we're new here. But I mean, yeah, the group coaching stuff is just it's fun. It's high energy. And so you've got to direct people like nobody knows what to do with their hands. And so you got to tell them what to do with their hands and fill that hour with like safe movement that
Yes.
gets them better, that engages them. I mean, there's so much to it,
Hmm.
and really just being thrown in the deep end helped tremendously to like, okay, we can do this.
Yeah, it's like one of those like things you have to be like thrown into the wolves to kind of get a gist of like how it works, and then be like, okay, that really didn't quite work out. Let's try a different avenue and kind of do that. So
Yeah. Well, and with group fitness too, one of the things is I think a lot of people really like when they're coaching group fitness, like they want to like get a lot of stuff into that hour, which like you know what I mean? Like you want to give them their money's worth, like you want to have fun with it, all of that. But like keeping people moving safely is so important.
yeah,
And helping them get better is so important. And more volume doesn't equal better. And so with group fitness stuff, I think that's something that's so great to just kind of always bear in mind when you're programming for classes or anything like that is like, is this designed in a way that these people are going to move safely and
yeah.
get better?
Hmm.
And that doesn't have to look like some, grueling hour, they're lying on the floor at the end. I mean, there are just so many different ways to go about it, which makes it fun.
Yeah, and don't get mad at people talking while they're working out.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
another thing. Like I used to get so pissed when people were talking. They were like just like socializing. I'm like, you're not working hard enough. Keep it going. And then I'm like, yeah, but you got to realize like this is kind of their free time away from
Mhm.
family or whatever, like whatever issues they're dealing with. So like talking to a friend is perfectly okay. That's that. I always
Mhm.
it took me a little while to get to that, but that's something that's very important. That's to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the other thing that I didn't mention that is just worth mentioning for group classes is warm them up sufficiently,
Yep.
and I would even encourage you to cool them down.
Hmm.
But I think that that's so, so important. That's something that, in CrossFit, there are a lot of facilities who do an amazing job of that. And in fact, if you go into like a Globo gym, right, you're typically not seeing most people warm up like at all.
Hmm.
And so we actually incorporate that at most affiliates, which is wonderful. But I really, really do think that giving someone a sufficient warm up and that, I mean, that is part of the workout. And if you do it right, they're working out while they're warming up. And
Yeah.
so they're not getting their workout cut short. It's a really focused, intentional thing in the beginning. And I think that I hope that that's something everybody focuses on because it's important.
Yeah, yeah. You also have a podcast, like I said earlier, so which is super cool. Like that. Congratulations. I think we have like 34 episodes in right now.
Yeah, yeah. I think 33, 34, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what made you kind of to get into podcasting?
I love doing this. It's the most organic form of content creation you could ask me to do. Sit here and have a conversation.
Yep.
Done.
Yep.
Yeah. So it actually was because whenever the relationship with once I moved to Austin and was no longer employed like I anticipated being, I had to figure it out.
Mhm.
And so one of the things I decided to do was, and I didn't start to create content until last year either, like on
Yep.
Instagram or anything like that, until they had simply just casually been like, "Hey, would you mind creating some reels, whatever?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so did, and then found it to be a fun creative outlet. So anyway, started to create content last year, and podcast just seemed like the most authentic thing to work into the plan, if you will. And
Yeah.
I had all of this energy and needed to put it somewhere and figure it out. So the podcasting, it's funny. I was unpacking some things here the other day and like saw a book that I read probably over a year ago about podcasting. I've always been fascinated with podcasts. I love them. It's a great way to consume information.
Mhm.
But yeah, I kind of got my back put against the wall of like needing to figure it out and decided to implement it as a part of my work strategy, whatever. And it's been well worth it. I mean, even if it never were to make a dime or whatever, just the opportunity, like you talked about, to be able to connect with people,
Yeah.
it's just been a gift.
Yeah, if like
So
if you told me 3 years ago, I get to talk to all these people in the CrossFit space, I'd be like, there's no way, no way. And then like literally I get to sit down and talk to, Bella Martin. I interviewed last week. And so it
yeah.
was like talking to her, like, like how she met all these like, CrossFit athletes. And it's just like they're regular people, but they want to get their story out. So like this is an avenue, and you can create like some really great friendships with the
Hmm.
majority of them. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that at this point there are so many podcasts available, right? That a
that's
lot of,
another thing. Yeah.
and that's very real. I mean, there are so many out there. However, like, look at why you're doing it. If it's of interest for someone, is why you're doing it because you're going to enjoy the process. Because if that's sufficient, then just do it anyway. It's exactly what you talked about, like getting to meet these people, no matter what. I already won because I got to have these experiences,
Yeah.
and then on top of that, the reality is that what is that? The cream rises to the top. I mean, it doesn't matter how many there are. If yours is really good, you're gonna be just fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I haven't really made a dime off of this anyway, and I don't care
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
just like I just want to learn and get to know people and kind of hear their stories, because obviously, I interview people that like are sometimes are not really well known in the CrossFit space that I
Yeah.
want to interview, and it's like interesting like hearing their stories compared to like Pat Vellner, which is like would be awesome. Pat, if you want to come on my show, more than welcome to. But like just hear like because even with Justin Kotler, I interviewed him and we talked about him being a dad and like family life and stuff like that. And he's like, like after he was just like, it was nice to actually not talk about CrossFit. And so
Yep.
it's just like hearing the other side of like, people, CrossFitters, and like being normal people was like pretty much
Mhm.
the one thing that I really do appreciate.
Mhm. Yeah, Justin Kotler is abnormal, though. That man is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. He's
I think
awesome.
so highly of him.
Yeah, he's a good dude, really good dude. And like I just giving me the an hour and a half just to talk to him is like, okay, thank you very much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Yeah. He's really cool. I mean, I'm sure you guys talked about it all, but just the fact that he's like so intent on the space growing and people getting opportunities,
Yep.
and just being inclusive and wanting everyone to feel seen and all of that stuff. It's just like, I mean, that guy's just built different. And so it's
Yeah.
really cool to see him have the success that he's having with underdogs because he's just a good dude.
Yeah, he is. So is there anybody on your podcast you'd love to have on that you haven't had on yet?
Oh, of course. I got a list. You want me to go down it?
Sure, give me a couple.
Let's see here. So guests, I will say I have been abundantly fortunate with the guests that I have had on my podcast.
Mhm.
I still literally am 33 episodes in and I take a look at who has come on and I'm just like, are you kidding me? Are
Yeah.
you kidding me?
Yeah.
One of the ones that we had on last year was Brett Contreras, and that was so cool. I couldn't believe that he said yes and came on, and then which he's the guy that invented
The
the hip
glute
thrust
guy.
for anyone who's
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
he's the glue guy. And then a few months later, I got the opportunity to go just train with him and in Fort Lauderdale where he is now, and he's become a friend, and we'll just chat on the phone. You know, it's so
That's so
those
cool.
exact
Yeah.
it's so cool. Yeah. So it's like that's a high, there's so many high. I mean, I have a proximity bias too, so it's like, oh, Marissa Loren was the one that came out last week, and I love her. Been consuming her content for 6 years, and then we can go back to the previous one. Well, I love that one because of these reasons. So, as far as guests that I would love to have on, I mean, I'm shooting for the stars. I want them all. You know, I
Mhm.
would love to speak to, this one's kind of an odd one in a way. Maybe people wouldn't expect it, but Mike Malak, who is actually the right hand to Logan Paul, impulsive,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, because he has drug addiction history. And that's something that's near and dear to my heart as a sober alcoholic. And certainly had my struggles with other substances as well. So anyway, I would love to get him outside of his bubble that he's in and just have a conversation. Like selfishly, I would love that. But I mean, yeah, I would love to have Alex Cooper from Call Her Daddy. I've loved watching her journey change dramatically, and she's
Yeah.
just done a beautiful job. So I respect the hell out of her. Yeah, I mean, there are so many that like I really I do have but what's cool is I have a whole list of these like big asks, and I'm asking, and I'm going to keep asking.
Oh, of
And I'm
course.
not
Yeah.
even, I when I moved to Austin, Lauren Everett's The Skinny Confidential. Do you know who that is?
It sounds familiar. I got to see their face if I.
It's not in the CrossFit world. Yeah, well, she owns Dear Media. Anyway, I've been listening to her for many, many years. Her and her husband, they have the Him and Her show,
Mhm.
and it's great. And so I've been listening to that for so many years. They're from California. They moved to Austin during the pandemic. When I moved to Austin, I was like, it's a matter of time. It's a matter of time. And then my now boyfriend, Eric, I've been telling him since we met, I was like, yeah, just so you know, that one, like, we're going to be friends. Like, we're actually going to be friends. So I ran into her the other day.
Oh, very cool.
Yes. And fully was like, this is it. You know, we were at the nail salon and I just walked up and said, big fan of your work. Just want to let you know, like, I would love the opportunity to, talk to you anytime, whatever. And I just love what you do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, because you never know if you don't raise your hand. And
Of
so,
course. Yeah.
anyway, that's one that, like, I would love to have her on. And I would just love to develop more of a business relationship. But I believe that will occur. Like, I think that all of these will happen. Not
Mhm.
only do I want them to happen, like, I believe that they will
Okay.
in due time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. So, speaking about businesses, so you have sponsorships and stuff like that, and so how do you connect with like sponsors and kind of pick the right ones that you want to work with for like content creation or anything?
Gosh, yeah. That's such an individualized journey. I talked about this actually. The very first podcast interview that I ever did for someone else was the WOD Proof app. Justin Timani,
Mhm.
who is in the CrossFit space heavily,
Yeah.
he interviewed me when I started to grow on Instagram and was like, "You're the accidental influencer, or whatever." And it was kind of accidental. I was like, "What's going on here?" Anyway, but we talked about then. I said, I'm so grateful that I came in not needing these brands to work with me, as in whenever we'll just say tummy tea or whatever, whenever all these different ones
Yeah.
see engagement and reach out, right? That I feel very grateful that I cannot imagine, like, people do come in and they really do need income. And sometimes, so I'm not here to say how somebody should or shouldn't do a thing. However, I just have chosen to really try to be very mindful of, like, does this resonate with me? Is this actually something that is actively a part of my life already, or something I'm genuinely interested in incorporating?
Mhm.
And so I haven't done it perfectly. I will not do it perfectly moving forward because I'm just a human. But definitely with the brands that I have chosen to align with, I've tried to do my homework. I mean, I could definitely speak to, not individual ones, but have had a lot of opportunities come across my plate for job offers, for sponsorships and things like that, that just do not align, or even I don't know enough. And in some of those, it's like, I would need to get to know you before we could actually really have that conversation. And that may be a year's thing.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
when you think about the brands that I do work with, I do, it's important to me to cultivate a relationship with them. Also, I've done it wrong, right? Like, I haven't done my homework and I've jumped in and then been like, uh-oh. you know? So I've done it wrong as well, but that's something I try to think about moving forward is like, is this somebody that you can be proud to partner with? Do
Yeah.
you align with their values and do they walk their values? Because it's
Hmm.
one thing to have it posted on a wall and it's a different thing as an organization to actually live by it. And that's a tough thing.
Yeah, because everyone says like, "Oh, we're this, this, and this." Like I keep on saying this in every single podcast. My wife has a big follow on Instagram. She's got like 160,000 followers
Heck
on
yeah.
Instagram. She's killing it. Like all fashion based. So Sarah
I'm
are,
gonna go
by the way.
follow her. I don't
Yeah, yeah.
even send me her account. I'm gonna go follow
I
her.
will, I will. So, but like you can imagine like how many people try to reach out to her. I mean, even me with like I only have like 4,000, which is not a big following, but still like you'll have like supplement companies or like something else like that you're not even like nowhere near even aligned or even heard of. Like, hey, would you like, we'd like to sponsor you for something. And I'm like, I don't know you as a brand. So like, why would I want to even associate with you? Or cause like, I don't even know, what's going on. And like,
Right. It's tough because it feels flattering too. Like, I think that that's something I've seen, friends come up with, and I've even experienced, whenever a brand approaches you, it's like, "Oh, they like me,"
mhm,
you know? "Oh," and then and said, "Well, could this work?" And so, yeah, I think that to try and this is, like, literally a conversation I have with myself actively today, and
yeah,
will still screw
mhm,
this up, I'm sure, but, like, "Okay, wait a second. Do I know anyone here?" And then like cultivating a relationship first, I've really appreciated, for example, a brand that I've gotten to do some work with that I'm just like stoked on is 511. And that one's not even like a super publicly known one, as far as like there are some that you could go to my page and easily see that I work with. And 511, you may not immediately know, but they have been absolutely wonderful to me. I love the community that they cater to, I love
yep,
what they do. And everybody that I've dealt with, from store managers, employees at stores, even all the way up to the heads of their marketing department and everything, like they've been, and it's been an ongoing conversation there. And so it's just really cool because we started to have a conversation early last year and it's just been this slow build. And I mean, I think that's so cool when a brand approaches something in that like authentic, organic way. And they're like, yeah, we want to get to know you too. Like
yeah, yeah,
that resonates with me. Like, oh, you don't just want to immediately send me some offer without knowing anything about me.
yeah.
You want to actually get to know me. Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah. So like that's one I'm stoked on getting to be involved with in any way because I love the way they're approaching that.
Yeah, I love the ones that like so originally like my name on Instagram was Type 1 Lifting, and so I changed it to my full name, and I'm like they're like, "Hey, Type 1 Lifting," and I'm like, "Okay, you really don't know my name, so I am not going to associate with you. Like
Copy and
just
paste.
block and delete. So see you later."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy like how what people would do just to get something so out of you.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
I did forget to ask you one question on the podcast spot. So you actually were doing a podcast at Wadapalooza.
Yeah.
How was that? So I've always wanted to go to Wadapalooza. Like that was like the one that's like on my bucket list. But like, what was it like podcasting on a stage in front of people and like kind of like out of nowhere, like not scripted or anything?
Life is surreal. My
Yeah.
whole life. I look around 2 years ago, I'm not even 2 years sober yet. 2 years ago, I was a drunk mess. That's the truth. Like my whole life feels surreal. Now, I've been doing hard work
Hmm.
to get here. I need to continue to do hard work to continue to have these opportunities. But anyway, so all of it feels surreal, and that certainly did. That was my second year going to Wadapalooza. You want to go? Let me encourage you. Go. It's the best. I mean, even if you don't work it and you just spectate, whatever you do, it's amazing. The event is rad. So getting the opportunity, yes, to podcast on the stage it was just surreal. The whole
Hmm.
thing, there were just so many details. I mean, like, just the people that I get to call friend today. And part of that Rogue Invitational was actually the first event that I got to be a part of as my own podcast. And so that was a huge step in the right direction professionally for myself, because once I was no longer working for a brand, then it was like, oh, okay, well, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so then for Rogue to get to do that, and then Wadapalooza also to get the opportunity to do that, was just like, okay, this is really, really just special. And so I just like try to be present and appreciate it and do something meaningful with it to the best of your ability. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know what else to do with that. It was cool.
Very cool. Very cool. That, yeah, that's what I would love to do, have my podcast on there. So I talked to Wex and I'm like, I would love to do it if it's a possibility. Who knows?
What I was going to say is I know that you know Wex and just talk to him. And I don't know how they set that up, I don't know the back end of that whatsoever, but Wex is definitely the guy to speak to about it.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to content creation. So obviously, like, there may be a possibility of like TikTok being banned and stuff like that. So where are you never gonna hear about this? Like the government supposedly wants to supposedly shut it down or something like that. But
Yeah.
where do you see like social media going to? Like, is it more like towards like the TikTok style, like shorts? Because I know YouTube does shorts where like you could actually get some big following on YouTube, but like where do you think it's going? Is it going back to like the typical pictures on Instagram and stuff?
So great question. I don't have a crystal ball. Um, but no, I love the question. This is great, to be thinking about. Eric's in the background. You stop, Eric. But so I think that in general, I think all the platforms are really unique. So I will say we just had South by Southwest here in Austin, Texas, and I swear this year's theme for that event
Mhm.
was AI. Okay, AI is the new hot thing. People are all writing their newsletters entirely with
Oh
AI.
yeah, yep.
Their content strategies are coming from AI. So I think that learning to use AI if you're in the content creation space is probably pretty important for the future.
Yep.
Um, for now and moving forward. Other than that, I mean, yeah, the attention span shortening is not really getting better that we are aware of. I have adapted to consuming that way because that's what's provided, right? And so even so that's do I think that short form content is not getting less popular but getting more popular? Yeah, I think it's getting more popular. Um, it's so cool how people who used to just create long videos now will often still create the long video, but they'll condense it down. There's this friend of mine, the flexible dieting lifestyle, Zach Reschelo. Amazing content. If you want to accidentally fall down the rabbit hole, and like he has just done an amazing job. He started out as a YouTuber,
Okay.
and I hope I'm telling the story correctly. He's wonderful. Anyway, and I mean, but he's got nearly a million on TikTok and nearly a million on Instagram, and I don't even know how many hundreds of thousands on YouTube. I mean, he's got a very large personal brand. He's been working on it for many years. When TikTok started to come about, he was years into his journey of creation, specifically with YouTube, had come over to Instagram, things like that. And when this short form thing came to be, he was like, I make recipes.
Hmm.
Like, I make food. How am I going to make short form content? And then all of a sudden he figured it out and he crushed it. I mean, he is just one of the best creators for short form recipe content. He figured it out. The
Yeah.
point, I guess, is that like if short form's not going anywhere, like you got to figure out how to make short form that works for you, right?
Yep.
But I do believe also that long form content is extremely relevant as well, because I also now suddenly feel like this is just like a name drop thing. But I had the fortune last year to meet Reed Dutcher, which is he's manages Mr. Beast.
Hmm.
And so obviously Mr. Beast is the number one YouTuber in the world. So I've gotten to consume his podcast, which is incredible for education for any creator. I mean, what he speaks is just incredible. But I've gotten to have a lot of conversation with him, which I just so appreciate. And so hearing from his perspective when he goes to all of these conferences and whatnot about brand building. And so
Hmm.
for a creator to build brand, you have this short form TikTok situation, swipe content, where it's just it's feeding it to you. So you've consumed potentially copious amounts of different stuff on TikTok,
Yep.
but you don't even remember the name of the creator. Like you don't know anything about them. Brand building on TikTok is harder. Not impossible, harder. Go over to YouTube. If you can get somebody to watch you for any length of time, 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes of a video, whatever, like they're your friend now.
Hmm.
And I think that podcast also falls under that long form. And
Yeah.
so it's just an interesting thing to be aware of. And I also am very new here and just like wheeling and dealing. Like I don't know. I don't like I'm speaking to
Guns a
people I've
blazing.
heard. Yeah. from the creators that I've gotten to befriend that have been doing it for many years, and also my boyfriend Eric has been has been creating for a number of years now. And on Instagram alone, he's
He's
built up,
killing it, killing it.
yeah, and it's great content. I mean, it's been so fun when we first got to know one another to see like, oh, he's so creative, like behind the lens, he's creative, and in front of it, and the way that he moves, like it's all so he's fun to watch create. And he's feeling very invigorated with it. So I'm very excited to see what comes next for him because he's in a
Mhm.
mood. So that'll be fun. But anyway, so I don't know. I think with content, like, if you want to create content, you just need to do it. You just need to do it, and you'll figure it out as you go. And is it resonating with you? Are you having fun with it? When I first started to create, I got made fun of a lot because I had no following, and even still, that's like a weird thing to me. It's my community, and I just love people. I don't know, the following thing's weird. Anyway,
Yeah.
but there was no one following, and so there was no legitimacy like to it really. So I would create these videos, and people would take video of me taking video of myself in Oklahoma and laugh at me and put it in group chats. And I knew about all of it. And fortunately, those people had dragged me hard enough already through other experiences that I was like, what you think of me can't be my North Star anymore. It
Hmm.
can't.
Yeah.
And so if what I'm doing is a fun creative outlet for me and I'm not hurting anyone, then I'm okay. I'm
Yeah.
okay. Like I'm going to do it anyway. So if you're wanting to create content and it resonates with you, go create your content.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have fun with it. You'll get better as you go on,
Yep. Definitely.
and you'll
Definitely.
have fun along the way.
Yeah.
So,
All right, so we're at the rapid fire question mark. So I mean, we could have gone on a full tangent. I think we probably could have gone another hour like Savon, but when I only do
you're
try to
right.
do like really lowest, not like try to get the hour range. But anyway, um, so do you obviously it's kind of like the beginning of the year. So do you have any goals that you want to hit by the end of the year? It could be like personal or business wise.
Ooh, okay. Let's see here. Goals that I want to hit. I really want to focus energy on. My goals are enjoying content creation.
Hmm.
Again, I definitely got really sidetracked with a number of different roles, and as a result, felt like I needed to maintain this thing, but didn't give it the energy that I want to. So goals wise, I'm just excited to put more energy into creation in a way that resonates with me. I'm really pumped up about that. Other than that, I have, physical goals as I'm actually like working on growing my lower body. So I'm actually doing specific bodybuilding workouts for lower body. I also still do my CrossFit Metcons multiple days a week because I love CrossFit.
Hmm.
But anyway, so I mean, like physical goals, I think is actually for the first time ever, it's more of a body composition thing, but like
Okay.
a healthy one. Like I think it's a fun project, and I started even doing it because I have clients that want it, and so like I guess I'll just test on myself. So
Yeah.
it's become fun. So those are goals. I'm going to run another High Rocks in November. And I think that it might be nice to become a better runner between now and then, but we've got plenty of time. So professional goals. I want the podcast to just
Kill it.
blow up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to just, yeah. But I'm having so much fun with it. I think that's the thing with me and goals where I don't know that I'm the best about those because I'm so process driven. Like I want to enjoy every step of the way
Hmm.
far more than like this arbitrary number that doesn't really make me feel any type of way.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there like a set like download number that you want to hit, or is it just kind of see where it goes?
Ooh, by the end of the year,
Yeah.
we're just over 70,000. So
Jesus.
I know. So I don't know. This is a great question. This is where like I need a mentor that's gonna help me with this kind of stuff. That's gonna be like, here's what your goal should be. Cause I'm like, I just want to have fun.
Yeah.
Oh, so I mean, it'd be great if that number by the end of the year was, I don't know, 300. That'd be incredible.
Okay. All right. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What is your favorite book?
Favorite book. Mm, mm. Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins is a really good book.
Okay.
It's a great read. Um, Another one that I really like is What Happened to You, which was a collaboration between Oprah Winfrey and a doctor. I cannot remember his name off the top of my head, but it's a really cool conversation between the two of them talking
O-
about trauma and
Okay.
healing. from a perspective of someone who's interviewed thousands of people and focuses on that, and then a doctor who has the scientific understanding. It's a really cool book.
Okay.
And then maybe Untamed by Glennon Doyle. You asked for one and I gave you three.
It's all good. I'll take that. So, what is in your gym bag?
Oh gosh, all sorts of stuff. A lacrosse ball, a band, um, one knee sleeve. Usually, I think there are currently 3 grips in there. I only need 2 grips,
Hmm.
but sometimes I have 1 and sometimes I have 3 and sometimes they're both right hands. And so there are grips, gymnastics grips. There's usually a backup pair of socks and shorts and bra, whatever, because we get in saunas all the time and ice baths. So we always need backups of those. Anything fun in there? Fun in there? There's aminos. There's aminos in there. Um, a lot of times
Lifters?
there's some no lifters. Yeah,
Okay.
no lifters. I really got on that trend when I went on the road last year of just doing everything in the same shoe.
Okay.
So my rads are what I do everything in. My Ollie coach, he's driven nuts by me. He's like, please wear your shoes. I do have them.
Just
But
somewhere.
no, I wear my rads for training and then I wear the cane recovery shoes. I like actually love wearing them. So I wear those a lot too. But
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. All right. So
yeah.
this one we're gonna go a little bit deep. So let's just say it's your last day on Earth and all your friends are around you. How do you want people to know you as?
Mm. I think I want them to know that I believe in them.
Hmm.
Like I think that I just want to like make them feel really capable.
Okay.
So I mean that would just like I don't know, I guess what that day would look like would just be a lot of like hearing people like listening to them and trying to encourage them. And this is like a best case scenario thing of, but like I don't know, how would I want to be remembered? I mean, I'd want them to hopefully think that I was like a value add in their life and that I like gave a shit. And yeah.
Okay. I like that. I like that. So, where could people reach out to you if they have any questions regarding like podcasting, social media, like even coaching or anything like that?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. And thank you for doing this podcast, by the way. It's doing podcasts is so cool. And I really appreciate you reaching out to me and taking the time to do this and everyone that you like the platform that you've given everyone else is meaningful. And so like this is as much as like this is your thing and like you're getting there, like you're giving your time. And so thank you for doing that.
I appreciate it.
And
You-
send me
You're
your
the
wife because I want to follow her.
yeah.
But other than that, yeah, no, where people can find me is at Claire Base, just my name. So if you go to Instagram is currently the biggest platform at this time.
Mhm.
And so just literally at ClaireBays. And then there, the current link in bio is straight to my wellness coaching platform. And so that's a really cool thing. There's low ticket, high ticket. You can do one-on-one with me and we'll do an interview to set that up. Or you can do the group coaching. We do group coaching calls every week and it's all got that all of your nutrition is in there and all of your movement is in there. So it's individualized programming for both movement and nutrition as well as all that mindset stuff that we work through. So anyway, that's where they can find me for the coaching stuff. And then yeah, I mean, there's always all sorts of events going on, and I'll be in Vegas here soon. Actually, Nashville before that, but in Vegas coaching randomly. I'm so excited about that. So we'll just be bebopping.
Nice, nice. Well, thank you
Yeah.
for coming on the show. I really do appreciate it and like learning,
Oh,
hearing your oh what?
the podcast, Conversations
Oh,
with
yes, yeah,
Claire.
yes.
They can
Yeah, you
find
got to
me at
put the
Conversations with Claire. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
All right,
Can't
well,
forget that one.
no, you're good. I mean, that's the main important one. So, but yeah, thank you for coming on. Like, obviously, like learning about you and trust. Like, there is so much more that we can uncover, like in another time. But thank you for doing this. I really do appreciate it.
I appreciate your time and I really thank you to Xander again for connecting us because that was just, I mean, that connect made was like, oh yes, absolutely done. And so I'm thankful for him. And then, yeah, if you ever want to dive deeper on any individual topics or anything, I'm happy to come hang out again. But other than that, I'm just excited to start to see what you're up to and I'm here to support you back. So
Appreciate it. Well, thank you.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll tell Wex, I'll put in a good word for you. I don't know what it'll do because I don't know how it works, but I'll at least say something.
All right, I'll talk to you later.
Okay, thank you so much.